vendors sell, and at the airport they sell them. They're like little popcorn, but you might not think of them as popcorn. Crunchy and a little salty, and maybe the leg will get caught in your teeth. That's the only thing I didn't like. We went to one place. We went to one place where we had. Are you getting back to the beginning? Are we showing off? Okay. We went to one place where we had a meal. And oh my gosh, they had gravy on this meat, and it was sprinkled with all these ants. And we said, okay, we'll give it a try. And it wasn't too nice because all those teeth got caught in your, all those little legs got caught in your teeth. But these are kind of fun to try one if you're interested. The kids in school did, so maybe you'd like it afterwards. Look it over and see if you're brave. Okay, go ahead.
Do I have permission to start now?
You can start now. Well, if you're ready. Are you ready is the question. That's what, I was just killing time and entertaining while
We don't have 20 minutes.
We're learning more about you, Luther and Doris.
Can you hear me okay, or does the mic need to be up?
No, louder.
Okay. Louder?
You need a mic?
Testing better, worse?
Luther, can you move it up further on your jacket?
Turn it on, isn't that the thing? Isn't that the key stage? Turn it on.
That's cool. Step one.
I can work with you on a stand-up routine.
All right, we have it turned on. Okay, so we're talking about the Milwaukee Medical Mission to Colombia, and the Milwaukee Medical Mission is a 510K, so it's a private organization, and it consists of largely many of these people here, most of these people. Generally, there are about 25 to 30 people that go on the mission each year, so we have plastic surgeons from Freighter, we have nurses from Freighter, we have some other allied health people from Freighter. I'm from Marquette, and so it's a good group. And each year there's some people come from the University of Ohio where they're anesthesiologists. So we have a full team for surgical interventions. Okay. Well, supposed to go there.
Right arrow. Right arrow.
Stand up.
There we go.
Okay, so each year, we, with the number that we have, 25 to 30 people, each person has a box full of supplies. And it's either boxes that look like this, or we have these big, huge black duffel bags as well that make up the 25 to 30 people. And so we leave these supplies down there because there's very much of a need for the people down there to use the supplies that we take. So we don't use them up while we're there. Brian, it's not working.
Just try pressing the right arrow too.
The right arrow. Okay. So we fly out of Milwaukee. We generally go to Fort Lauderdale. We transfer to a plane from what company are we going to?
Bogota.
Bogota, and then we transfer from Bogota again to Bucaramanga. So
Bogota, and here's Bucaramanga
yeah,
right there.
Bucaramanga's right up in there.
In the mountains?
Yeah, it's kind of in a valley. There's mountains all around it.
Okay, so there's some shots of the city of Bucaramanga with about 2 million people. It looks fairly modern, these pictures, but of course this is the area where you have the businesses, and we're not seeing people, houses where poor people live in this shot. This is an example of kind of stacked up homes where people who come to the hospital, and the hospital is a indigent serving hospital. And so, this is just an example where those folks might be coming from. It's a traffic jam in the morning and the afternoon, and they actually have days when people with certain license plate numbers can't drive, and then they switch off with other people who have other license plates who can drive. And
There's a million
tons and
motorcycles.
tons of motorcycles out there. A lot of motorcycle accidents and injuries that we see coming into the hospital. The kind of founders of the Milwaukee Medical Mission are these two folks. A very dear colleague of mine on the left, Sonia Dumet-Minkle, is originally from Colombia, and she's been in the United States most of her adult life. And Dr. Ramirez, on the other hand, is from Bucaramanga. He's a plastic surgeon, and so over 30 years ago, the two of them got together and formed the Milwaukee Medical Mission. And the mission actually consists of having plastic surgeon students come from Bucaramanga, come to Milwaukee, come to Frederick to get experience in surgical techniques here, and then vice versa. They send students from here down there to work down there. These are plastic surgeons. Dr. Sanger on the left, he's a hand surgeon. Both of these are hand surgeons. Dr. Matlub as well. This is Dr. Arlen Denny. He's a craniofacial, anything that involves with the head, as far as injury to the face, the skull. That's his bailiwick. This is Dr. Dan Zinkel. He's one of several anesthesiologists. And he's Sonia and Dan, husband and wife team. This is Dr. Drushinsky. He's also a plastic surgeon, and he does facial restoration. You can see in this picture a man here who is in an industrial accident, had his nose completely cut off. And you can see that in the middle picture here up there. And then after the repair, he developed nose from other tissue in his body. That's what plastic surgeons do.
Yeah, and I just want to interject, Dr. D also does ears. He's really good at ears.
Oh, yeah.
And building ears from other parts of the body that he uses, and you'll see some of those in my slides.
Okay, well, so I'm not part of the surgical team. I'm not a surgeon. I'm a physical therapist, and I have certification in chronic wound management. And I'm here. I'm doing ultrasound to cleanse or clean debris and dead tissue off of a wound. Ultrasound works very nice to do that. So sorry about the goriness of this, but this is what we see. These kind of things. And so changing the dressing, we'll be changing the dressing here on this wound on the right-hand side. Dressing is being done there. So this is an example of a diabetic foot ulcer. And diabetes is worldwide, tremendous disease that is affecting many, many people, especially indigent people, poor people, who don't have the means to get to where the help is oftentimes. And so oftentimes they don't get to where they should be getting, and they have to have their part of their lower extremity amputated, which is a sad situation. But there are other, we can deal with those patients who need to have prostheses, and physical therapy gets involved in that, as well as even before prostheses, if they don't totally lose their foot, we can fit them with a special type of a walking shoe. Won't show you any more gory slides. Okay, so I do a lot of teaching as well, and I've for over 30 years I've been teaching at Marquette the wound healing course to physical therapy students there. I've traveled around the United States and Asia and other places, and teaching students, usually in physical therapy. These are students from one of the universities, Manuel Beltran, and then the students at the University Industrial East Santander, which is a state university that we work at, and a hospital that we work at is part of the University at Industrial Santander. So industrial because they have a lot of oil in the country, and they have electrical engineers, industrial engineers, and big industrial program for students. So just another example of students that spent pretty much a day teaching students last year. This is the hospital, and it looks pretty nice on the outside, but it's been, how many years did we say that we started?
You mean from the beginning
Yeah.
of 30 years, but, oh, when they started the reconstruction, when I went there 8 years ago, I saw the old hospital. It was in total disrepair, the outside's fallen down, I mean, it was a mess. It has been under construction every year since I've been there for 8 years. They're trying to improve it. One year they'll do one floor and paint it, and there's dust all over the place that while they're doing the operating room. But they did the outside, and they really made the outside look pretty good. I don't know.
And different floors and inside are coming around now too.
Yeah, they're coming
It
around.
takes forever because there's very little money.
Yeah.
The government doesn't provide very
Yeah,
much
I
money.
think the drift that I got from this, and I maybe will agree with it, is that the drug cartels were in such a strong force all the years that Luther went from the beginning of his tour for 10 years, where they had to have high security and the economy was just a mess. Well, a new government came in and booted the drug lords out, and they all moved to Mexico and Central America. And now the ones that are left are cooperating with the government, but because of that, there's more money to put into private housing and into hospitals for the public. Before that time, they didn't put any money into this hospital, and now that that's kind of settled down, they're getting
So
into
even now, there's such a lack of money that the nurses here are demonstrating because they don't get paid on a regular basis.
They haven't been paid for 3 to 6 months,
Yeah.
but they keep coming back because it's the only job they've got. Now,
Okay. You ready?
yeah,
Want to do this?
I'm ready. I
Okay.
think if I don't know too much about the computer.
Just have to press this button here.
Right here, we are doing what you guys have done, giving us Beanie Babies and everything. As soon as we arrive, we begin to put together packets like this with all kinds of toys in it, the right side or the left side.
Left side.
Okay, and you can see everybody does it, the doctors, the volunteers, the whole shebang. We put together about 250 of these or so to give out to kids as they come. And then here's the Beanie Babies that we've collected that go in bags like this for the kids to play with while they're waiting. The first day, I better not push the front. The first day begins with the clinic day, and here are all the patients who have come. Let me first give some background information. Way before the mission starts, I don't know, 6 months probably, people are coming to the hospital, probably about 600 from all over the area. Some of them take a whole day to get there, and any way they can, they come, and the doctors at the hospital.
Dr. Ramirez.
Is it only Dr. Ramirez?
Well,
Like, the one doctor who's a surgeon, he screens them all, right. He screens them all to make sure that they can be operated on in a short time and not have any complications. And he cuts that 600 down to about 250. So when we arrive on clinic day on Monday morning, all these people have come about 6 o'clock in the morning and are sitting there waiting to be called in. It's a chaotic day. There's no air conditioning. It's hotter than blazes. And you can see they bring them in and they have to process them and take pictures and do everything, and within 3 or 4, and then take them on to the surgeon that applies to their problem. And it takes about 3 to 4 minutes. The surgeon has to make a decision do I operate on this person or not? Can I do it? Will there be a problem? And right away, they cut down that 250 by 125. Now this is, you look real hard, you'll see somebody in there that probably doesn't belong. He didn't want me to put it in here. It's so hot there that you'll see a patient, familiar patient who got dehydrated very quickly and collapsed on the back row there. These are some of the patients just waiting there. Another little girl with the cleft there that's waiting to be looked at by the doctor. She'll go to Dr. Denny, the craniofacial doctor. And then once we get all this taken care of, and we've done this all day long, then the doctors have to take the 125 patients that they chose and decide who they're going to do first and when they're going to do them and how much time they need and the whole thing, and set up their surgery schedules, and so the person can be called that night to say come in on Tuesday morning. And it's really quite, it's really quite involved. There's a lot of waiting, a lot of patient waiting here. These are the most patient people you ever saw in your life, that you continually, nobody gets upset. They can wait all day long and never even gripe or complain, so it's very amazing. Okay, so now we're ready to start I'm here mostly to tell you about what I do and what the patients are like. First of all, I am, and you'll be surprised, the entertainer. Generally, I just keep them entertained and kill time so that all these people that are coming through, it's not just children, you'll see in pictures, we have anywhere ages from 18 months, which I don't do anything to. I started about 3 or 4 years old, up to oldest one was 53, wasn't he? And so these are just all ages and then they all bring their brothers and sisters and mothers and daughters and everybody else and join in on the fun too. But I have a little room and I teach 4 different kinds of origami, and I do paper projects and make bead bracelets and play games like bingo and spot it and memory and garbage and drawing, and give them opportunities to work on puzzles and books to read, anything to kill the time. The killer is when I look at my watch and it's only 9 o'clock and I've got to keep them entertained for 4 hours still. So, well, let's take a look at some of the kinds of patients that come. Here I am at a table with a variety of different people. I don't know what we're doing there. I think we just finished an origami lesson there. This is an interesting little situation here. This is a biracial couple, and the little girl is an Indian, indigent Indian, would you say, somewhere in the bush somewhere. And she was born with this cleft palate, and the tribe was going to throw her away because she wasn't perfect. And so the social worker who came knew about this couple who was in Bucaramanga. I don't know, maybe they're not in Bucaramanga, but wherever they lived, and asked them if they'd like to adopt her. And they decided to adopt this baby. This is the way she came in with her cleft. This is the picture after the cleft was repaired for the first time. And then they have to sometimes come back 2 or 3 times to get all the scar tissue and everything looking better. This is a picture of her after her had surgery. They put these little things on the kids so that they can't bend their arms to mess with their faces. And they're all laying there all bandaged up everywhere. So she's moving along. And now then this is the picture of hers a year later. And it's improving, but now she's back. They'll do her palate, which is also a problem. And they will fix the repair on the front and make that nice and smooth. Then here's another lady. I really enjoyed her. She had these things all over her body. They were like big masses of blobs everywhere. There's nothing the doctor could do all over, but there were many that were made her uncomfortable, like the one on her lip, some on her back when she sat down. They were the size of they were this big, the ones they took off of her body in the back. Don't know what kind of condition it is. It's just a condition that. But she was a nice lady. Then this is a lady. The first picture, she came in with this mass of veins on her face. What was the word you called it? Some varicosities. They couldn't do everything with her, but maybe you can tell on here that they took a lot of it out. Whether she'll come back another year or not, she might, and have more taken out. Whether they will reappear is another problem.
just like varicose veins on your leg, instead of
Yeah.
on your face.
It's all over your face. I don't know, who knows? This little girl has one of our Beanie Babies we got from the Ronald McDonald's house sent these big babies over. She doesn't have too bad of a cleft, but they'll fix that up. Here is a picture of one of the cancer patients, the first little girl. When I'm not, you could tell by the list of what we do every day. When I'm all done by 1 o'clock in the afternoon with the patients who are going in for surgery, then I go to the burn wards and the cancer wards. And I take origami to them, and we take things for them to color and paint. They make beads and around their beds and things. Well, this was a little girl that just happened to be in the cancer ward. And I don't have a whole lot of pictures from the burn wards. The burn ward is kind of sad. Sometimes I even work with the older men in the burn ward from industrial accidents and just entertain them more with, and give them word searches to do to kill their time, anything to make it go easier. The next lady on there is one of my favorite. It's hard to see on that picture, but she had all these little bumps growing all over her face. And this is her son, and he had the same little bumps all over her face, his face coming. It's a condition that she'll never get rid of. It's in her DNA, but they can take some of it off now, but they'll all grow right back on. But she was a very happy person, and she was a masseuse, and she gave me a massage on my neck and got me all relaxed. Very nice lady. Now here's an idea of the ears. This is an ear that's got to be done. The first one, this little girl, has a deformed ear. And now this little boy had a deformed ear, and it's in the process. It was worked on last year. It's hard to explain how they do that, but Dr. D is pretty good at it. And if I say it wrong, they have a mass there, and they take a part of cartilage out of your rib cage, and they form an ear, and then they flap it over, and it lays flat like that, like this little boy's. It's totally flat to his head, and they wrap it all up, and a year later, when it's all healed, they bring him back, and then they cut the back of the ear so the ear sticks out, put a little cartilage in back so it forms out right, shape it the way they want it to be, and then he goes off on his own, and usually after 2 surgeries, they're looking pretty good. You'll see a couple of them that are done. This man had an industrial accident and lost his thumb, so he had no pinching, and so they had to do a surgery and take this finger and move it over here so it could act like a thumb. And they just moved it and turned it around, and then he had a grip. Then he had a.
We had a case some years ago where the man did not have a thumb.
Oh, yeah.
They took his big toe, amputated his big toe, and brought his big toe up and made a thumb.
It's really, they do some amazing things. I've never seen plastic surgery before I went to this. This is another gal with, the one she was in, these were taken the same day. So this was the ear she was going to have done, the first one. And this is the ear she had done last time, because she had both ears problems. So this is the ear that was done in the last 2 or 3 years. And she came in to do her other ear. Now, another thing they deal with besides ears and clefts and things are burns. This little girl, she's not very little anymore. For some reason, she got her hands and face, and that's the reason she's wearing the hat, because there's burns all over her neck and body. And she has that contractures where, she can't straighten anything out. So they do a lot of contracture repair. We had, I wanted a picture. A lot of women there have burns, especially at the beginning. It's getting a little less and less now, but maybe
Well,
it still
a lot of people, they cook with kerosene.
Yeah.
So they get a fire starting on their stove, and then one thing leads to another, people get burned.
Yeah, a lot of,
Yeah.
but there was a real problem, is a jealousy problem there, where women, if the jealous wife or the jealous girlfriend came and threw acid in the faces of the other person, and so we had a number of people that were severely burned from acid being thrown in, blinded, and the whole thing. It's really too bad. It wasn't always the wife doing it to the girlfriend, and in this case it was the girlfriend doing it to the wife, which you can't figure out that at all. The other picture that I'm doing here is playing memory. You just turn over 2. you'd think it's a children's game. Every age plays memory, and they're loving it all the time. I just want to tell you about, it had to do with the burns. Oh, a little boy, it was just amazing. I didn't have a picture of him. I have a picture somewhere, but I couldn't find it. But he was carrying propane, I think, for the fire, and it exploded, and it totally burned one side of his body. And you could just draw a line right down through the middle of his nose, all the way down. This side was perfect. This side was absolutely a mass of scar tissue. And he had trouble with his eyes and with the contractures, and they were trying to make it better on that side.
So they have a really big burn unit at the hospital
Yeah.
as well.
Here I am making origami. That's one of the things I do. Here, when Lou was talking about the man that got the thumb from a toe, same thing happened to this little baby. This little baby had no fingers at all like this, so had no grip. And actually the feet weren't in very good shape either, but they did find a toe. This is a toe they took off of this baby's foot. And it was probably that toe right there, but I can't guarantee. It took it off and stitched it on to the end of the fingers so the baby would have a pointer when she grows up. As she grows up, she's going to be able to pick things up and point. But before that, there's nothing the baby could pick up or...
Will that thumb grow then too?
I don't know. Will it grow, Lou? It must grow with it once it gets attached.
It probably won't be functional though. Yeah.
But it'll be something they can grip with it, whether
Yeah.
that it's an index
Well-
finger. It's actually an index finger.
Yeah, well,
Will
did
the-
they test to see if she could oppose a thumb and finger?
Well, I don't know. I wasn't there. I took the picture, but I don't pay that much attention to it. So, and then, but that's the kind of surgery you'll see. Here's a little girl that has a crook in her arm. They'll get it straightened out. One of the Beanie Babies there that are little dolls we got here through St. Matthew's along with Beanie Babies. She was a cute little girl. Just to say that I'm not sitting around doing origami all the time with the kids, here are the security guards. Once the kids are gone in the afternoon, I've got all of the people that work there. They're coming in, they're wanting to do things, they want to play the games, they want to, and if I've got time, I just stop and teach the origami to these other people. Now here's one of my favorite people in the whole time I have ever been at that mission. This boy was about 15 years old, and he was born without shoulders, or working shoulders, so he had arms that laid to the side. The right arm just hung there. The left arm, he could kind of do this, so if I played a balloon with him, he could kind of bat it like that. But he had been 15 years old and had never fed himself. In 15 years, he could not raise his arm. And actually, when he went to see the doctor, he said he wanted to do only two things: be able to raise his arm to feed himself, and to be able to clean up after he went to the bathroom. He was never able to do that. So they put to work, and I want to show you how he adjusted. He had the whole entire area there coming to watch him. He learned to write and draw with his feet. He absolutely drew beautiful pictures, wrote in cursive, did the whole thing. He just took his shoes off and sat down there and demonstrated. Everybody came around. So then, the thing of it was, they took a muscle out of here or something. They took a muscle somewhere else in his body, they transplanted it here so he could do this, so he could at least raise the arm. And then they figured out a special implement or something that could help him clean up after he went to the bathroom. But he just came back last year, and here he is drawing with on his lap right there with his chalk right here with his hand. And I said, oh my gosh, I can't believe that. He was drawing with his feet all that time, and now he was drawing with his hand. And I think they were going to do something to the other shoulder. I don't know whatever became of him. I don't have too many more here. So another really, really, really exciting story. This is the oldest man we ever had. He came in with this enormous big beard. He was a farmer, lived way out on a farm somewhere, and he had this humongous cleft that went, and palate and everything. And he had grown a great big huge beard to cover it up. And he never wanted to come in, and finally his granddaughter, who's sitting right there, said, okay, you're coming in, and she literally drug him in to have that cleft repaired. The doctors took one look at him and said, this man shouldn't have been doing this for 53 years and having that cleft. He's the first guy we're doing. And they had to shave him. That didn't make him happy, so you can tell he's rather grumpy. He was so grumpy that first, after that, he never smiled. He just was grumpy. He just didn't want to be there, didn't like the whole idea. And we took the picture of him. Okay, I'll take the picture. That was about it. Well, the next year he came back for the cleft and for the palate. And he's just like sunshine and daisies, I'm telling you. He was just so excited and happy to get in there to get that fixed. And he looked 10 years younger, and it was really exciting to see that happen to this guy who's not been able to eat properly for 53 years. Couldn't swallow properly. He just adjusted to it. Another little girl, no hand here. A lot of things they can't do anything with. They just say, you know, there's just not anything we can do. It's kind of sad. A little boy to show how his cleft was repaired. Now imagine, this little boy must be 13, 14 years old. He was with an open cleft for how long? For that many years. And he just got it repaired. So it's kind of amazing when you see these people come in at 18, 19, 12, 15, 16, and they have been living all that time with that kind of problem. And I think this is my final picture of another favorite person. This little boy was burned all over his face, all down his front here, and he had such scar tissue that he couldn't raise his head. And it was so bad that it turned his lip inside out like that. And it held his lip way down because of the scar tissue that was there. And when he first came in, he was just sitting in the corner over there, wouldn't even look at anybody, you know. He was just so uncomfortable. And we got to working with him and got him a little more comfortable, and I couldn't believe it. Here he is running over here and giving me a hug. And this just blew my mind. And started playing the games and things because he wasn't pleasant to look at. It was very, very hard to look at because their job was to release those adhesions down in his neck to make it so he could raise and lower his head. That was he may come in again for more, but that was the first thing that needed to be done, to release that so his lip would go back in the same place, and that would work out. Before I finish, the hardest, the most amazing surgery I ever saw, because I could go in and see sometimes, I don't do that much anymore, but was absolutely amazing that they could do this. This woman came in and she had no forehead. Her forehead was pushed back, and her eyes bugged way out, and her forehead was way back here. And so her whole face was all completely bizarre looking. And I mean, I doubt she even went outside very much because it was so bizarre. Well, they literally took her face off. They cut around here, peeled her face back, cut right in here, and put a spacer in there to bring her frontal lobe, her front bones forward, then wrapped the face back on and sewed her up, and I went to see her in recovery before she swelled up, and she was absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I mean, it was just like you went from this person who people would turn and look at and think was a monster to someone who just was gorgeous. She was going to turn out beautiful. And you say, how could they do that? How can you not kill a person doing that? But now they have face transplants, don't they? So I'm going to let Luther take over and tell you about, this is mostly the mission. Now, we do have a little bit of fun there. And we didn't know how long this was going to be, so it probably won't last the whole time. The three places we generally go to all the time while we're there for entertainment. Okay, save it for the end.
So we usually have two weekends free. Okay, the first weekend when we get there on Friday, so we have Saturday and Sunday, and then the clinic starts on Monday, as Doris talked about. So we have at least one day out of that first weekend that we're there. And then we have a weekend between, the second week that we're there. So we have a number of choices to go, and one of the choices is to go to the Parque Nacional, Chicamocha, which is, up in the...
Is your mic on low? Myron says he's not, it isn't very loud.
This national park is up in the mountains, and we usually go by bus there, and so it's about a 2-hour ride, but it's an amazing thing. This was a huge statue there that is built on board of what looks like a ship, okay, and it's commemorating the founders of Colombia, and one of the founders was a woman, and she also has a university named after her. So it's always pretty crowded up there now, and a lot of people go there. Okay, so you can see kind of the front end of the ship is tilted up there. Okay. That's the center there, and then the other end is, so you can get up on that thing and walk around and look at all of the different displays on the ship. And they have other buildings up there where they serve food and other types of activities. So there you can see up here now this big display of this ship type feature here. They have a bungee there. Okay, this is the Chicamocha River. It's a long river that passes through much of Colombia. You can see it's in the valley, big mountains on either side. This is in a town that's real close to where our hotel is. The town is Giron. And of course, this is the basilica, big church, and beautiful inside. And a lot of the surrounding houses are white, typically of Spanish architecture type thing.
A lot of little shops in there of all kinds of
Look like
handmade
this.
Colombian stuff. You go there to get.
Yeah, a lot of shops for visiting. And then sometimes they have get-togethers with dinner at night in the park that's in the center of this little town, and they'll have some of the local bands. They bring have music there. You can do a little boogieing.
And dancers that come and dance Colombian style, and then they ask people to come and dance with them. And Luther never hesitates. He likes it. He always says a good thing.
Okay, so this is another national park that people go to, and this is up on the top of basically a mountain. And this is not as high in altitude as the one in, is it Brazil?
I don't know. Maybe not, but I think the statue's supposed to be about the same size.
But you can take an elevator up and get right up even with the top of Jesus there. This is actually what you see when you're up there looking out. It's not a good picture because it's kind of a cloudy day.
Are those like antennas?
Yeah, antenna. Okay, this is a highway that goes past our hotel. This is the entrance that leads up to our hotel. Up there, the actual office building is right there.
The hotel sits right in an industrial area. When you're up at the top and you're looking down, you see factories and all kinds of things all around. It's not in anything residential. I had some pictures, but I didn't get those on, but we just put a couple on here. It's a nice hotel.
Okay. So that's kind of the top, that's where the office is.
Yeah,
up there.
notice the ants crawling across the, these are all big metal ants, that's their theme. Runs up the side over here, and these big metal ants, they've got a big ant hill, all from the tradition of the roasted ants.
Yeah, if you go to like the national parks, they'll have people there selling little bags of ants that you can buy. And, you know, they, surprisingly, they're kind of like popcorn.
Yeah. They don't taste that bad if you get over the idea of an ant.
This is a nice pool at the hotel where we stay. And this hotel is selected years and years ago because the family that owned it at that time was known to Sonia.
Sonia's uncle or
the
something.
lady
wasn't
from Colombia who's been in the United States now for a long time. But so we keep on going there. But now it's a Ramada hotel. So,
And Ramada has made a lot of changes, like the big tents in the back, that's for, they
Weddings.
made it into a
the wedding
destination wedding thing. There's a chapel back there and up above there. Before the last 5-6 years, I'd say, when you say it's been changing the last 6 years, they
Yeah.
didn't even have a fence around the hotel, like you see that gate, that glass gate around the pool. You just walked right in there and jumped in. But because of its Ramada, there's all these restrictions on safety, and they made a lot of changes. Before that, it was very, very Colombian, and a lot of birds floating around through the dining hall, and, you know, but a lot of that stuff is. But this is the reason I go, is because of the swimming pool. Great
Up
swimming.
here are some of the rooms where, you know, guests stay.
Yeah.
And they like that.
And that's the dining hall where the arched windows are, that's what, and this is what one of the rooms would look like. You just go in there and there's,
Very nice, very nice. This is their version of an American hamburger.
and it has chicken and ham and bacon and, what else on that hamburger? And cheese, a couple times of cheese and lettuce and tomatoes and
Everything you can imagine.
everything you can imagine on that hamburger. That's an American hamburger.
Okay. I wanted to say earlier that because of all of the very serious chronic wounds that come to the hospital, and over the years, this is going to be my 18th year that I've been going there, and it really hasn't changed in terms of, you know, the capability of the healthcare professionals who are there to be able to handle and to treat people with those chronic wounds. And many of them come from, you know, a bus ride, you know, all-day bus ride, you know, to this place. And at any rate, I got a committee together down there of the local people, and so I'm going to work with them to raise money, and I'm going after, you know, some of the billionaires. Who
So if
have
you're a billionaire
money.
here, watch out.
And so the goal is that we will eventually be able to develop a wound healing clinic that stands by itself. Right now, they don't have anything. They just put people, you know, where there's supplies, for example. And also, I have colleagues, faculty down there who are interested in doing wound healing research. And so I'd like to be able to also hopefully develop a wound healing laboratory to do research. So that's you know, down the road, and we hope that we'll make some steps in you know, making advances along those lines. But appreciate your attention, and
Do you have any questions? Anybody have any questions about it?
I do. Your group goes in February usually.
yes, yeah.
Are there groups from other countries, from other parts of the states that go at different times of the year? Or yours is the only group that
Yeah.
goes to this hospital?
That's
Mhm.
right.
Yeah.
This is
The
the
only one.
only group that goes to this hospital.
Yeah.
And so they are all waiting all year long to have us come.
Yeah.
What's the temperature of the religious life on Sundays? Are the churches filled with people? Or
Yeah, I think so.
is
yeah.
there any connection between the church and healing, to where the Catholic Church could be involved in opening a clinic?
Yeah, that's a good suggestion, I think. Yeah.
I think, we do know Colombians that live there, and you ought to ask them.
Yeah.
uh,
Well, we have, the people on the committee will know the answer to
Yeah.
that, yeah.
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 We really haven't gone to church while we're there, so we can't really say how many people are actually in church.
Yeah.
We're not allowed, we might add this in, because of security, we're not allowed to go anywhere off of the campus of this hotel unless we have a security guard with us.
Yeah.
We can't go to Haron, to the mall, to the, even for the guys who go out running, have a security guy with them. Any place, anytime, we're in Colombia, even in the hospital.
Yeah.
If I wanna go up to the 4th floor or the 10th floor where the cancer unit is, and I'm on the 4th floor where my room is, I have to take a security guard with me to go up to the 10th floor. They're very protective of everybody in the mission because there's been a lot of trouble. Not with our mission, but with just general.
There's no public money for education. I'm just, like the Jesuits are the largest
Yeah.
educational institution on earth.
Yeah.
You know, and are there Catholic elementary schools or?
Yeah, there must be. That's another thing. We've
Yeah.
never had
Okay.
time to even look in on the
Yeah.
school. But I think there are, because we see kids in uniforms and stuff
Yeah.
going to.
Yeah, it's good idea.
What about, question for you and then a question for Doris. For yourself, Luther, you indicated your specialty was physical therapy, and you showed us 2 classes that you were teaching. Are you limited on what you can teach them because of the facilities that they do not have, or are you pretty much free to give them the wealth of your information?
Well, it depends. I get invited to teach at four different universities while I'm there. That picture that I showed you of that larger group, that's a private university, okay? And they do have money. In fact, when I first arrived there last year, they took me into a room on the 1st floor where they had an electronic device that you could just, press buttons and you could see, how blood is flowing through a certain area of the body, or, all kinds of things that you can see electronically.
That's a
And
rich
typically,
hospital.
to see that kind of a thing, you'd have a live cadaver, where you can pump blood through arteries and veins, but here you're seeing it electronically, so it's, so,
But
yeah.
Are you strictly limited to wound healing, or do you teach electrotherapy and other courses?
Well, I teach, other types
Anything they
of
want.
physical energies, I call it ultrasound, electric field energy, a lot of different types of energies that that advance tissue healing. So it's all part of physical therapy, but I'm a certified wound healing expert, so.
Okay, and my question for Doris, are you fluent in speaking Spanish,
Oh,
or do
that's
they
a good
understand
question.
English?
Absolutely not. One of the words that help me teach the people what they're supposed to do, how to do origami, I know all the words that go with that. I just managed to get along. Some of them speak a little English, but that is a problem. That's definitely a problem, but no. We do have interpreters there, and sometimes we have volunteers, teenagers that come. And they know from being in school, they know a little bit of Spanish, and that helps if I've got an interpreter. But as far as I'm concerned, I just say, no habla español. Sorry.
Yeah, going
Try
back,
speaking in tongues?
Yeah.
going back 18 years, up until the last, I'd say, 4 years, all of my presentations had to be translated, So I had a translator there, yeah. But now, the students are learning English, okay? The students are learning English, so I can give presentations in English now.
I appreciate Doris's response. I've been to Tanzania twice. That's what we found as well. We wanted to communicate. We didn't look to the adults. We looked to the kids because they
Kids, and you
learned
know
English in
certain
school.
words, you just have to have, I have cheat sheets all over the place. I have these cheat sheets that I go through that tell me what words, a lot of people think I speak it pretty well, but I don't, I'm just speaking individual words. I don't understand a thing.
It can be amazing how much you don't need words for.
Yeah, you don't, it's true, you don't need words for everything.
Well, you have thank you in 10 different languages.
Mhm.
People count 9, but there are actually 10.
Yeah.
There's 2 that I'm not familiar, 3. Dicky, Curler, and I think that's Korsnetto. That's, one is Swedish, isn't it? I know you've got Gracias is Spanish,
I'm sure.
Vielen Dank is German,
Yeah.
Grazie is Italian, Obrigado is
Grazie.
Portuguese,
Grazie is Italian.
Merci is both French and Farsi, which is spoken in Iran.
Yeah.
But the other 3 I'm not familiar with.
No.
Yeah, Myron, did you have a question over here? It was answered
Someone in the back
already.
did. Go ahead, in the back.
I just wanted to know, maybe you covered this before we walked in, but what can we do to help support you guys?
I'm sorry?
Well, the only way the church has been supporting really has been donating Beanie Babies for the kids, but I got quite a few Beanie Babies right now, so I don't know if I was gonna do that this year. There's always donations that the mission would accept, I'm sure. But we're not going out and asking for donations or anything for the mission. Everything is paid for by us, the people who go. We don't get any help. We pay for our airline flights, we pay for our food, we pay for our room. The doctors maybe get special grants and things, I don't know. I don't know what they do.
They pay on their own too.
Yeah, but basically, we all pay on our own, and I don't know how the mission does fundraising, do you? Where do they get I don't know, that has never been part of the mission where we've talked about fundraising.
Yeah, that's the kind of the plan that I have to raise money for the clinic, is, to have the money come in through, because it's a 5-10 days, so, yeah, it's able to receive funding,
Yeah.
and you can write it off.
So what is the name of the charity, or what is the?
It's the Milwaukee Medical Mission,
Yeah.
right?
Milwaukee Medical Mission, and then do you guys take donations of airline miles for flights?
That'd be great. That'd be great. I mean, that's a real hit on our pocketbook,
Yeah,
when we come
that
up in
is.
there.
Byron?
Question about, your clientele, are these problems unique to this area of the world, or are
No,
this
that's-
similar
that's-
wherever?
Yeah, a lot of
we-
people
we
ask
go?
that question because, you see so many people with pelvis cleft lips and, deformed hands and so forth too. Well, why is that? And it could be because of intermarriage. I mean, that's one possibility, I guess.
Poor nutrition, maybe?
No,
That wrong, I don't
maybe.
know.
Or, well, certain drugs.
Oh, drugs, yeah, well, when the drug cartels were,
Yeah.
mothers on drugs or what, I don't know, we've asked there many times at the mission, what's causing all these things? And even the doctors go, I don't know, how can it be that there's that much for the kids?
Is there a Colombian community here in Milwaukee of immigrant population
I don't
that
know.
identifies?
Sonia knows who's,
I don't know, at one time there was a Colombian restaurant
That's what I'm
on
wondering.
National
we
Avenue.
went to it one time,
It
it
didn't,
closed.
it didn't last very long.
Ignorant about how this.
I know we run into Colombians every now and then through Sonia, she's been here a long time.
She may know,
Yeah, and she might know what's happening in the, but I don't know that she's active in any kind of Colombian organization, like the Filipinos have an organization. I don't know about the Colombians.
The reason I ask is there's a lot of very wealthy Colombian, I shouldn't say Colombian, but South American wealth that has made it in this country, and now they're wanting to start schools for their people the way any immigrant population does. And I'm just saying tying into that would be a natural.
Yeah, that would be really something to look into.
I'll check that out a little bit with a couple Catholic priests I know.
Okay. I appreciate it.
Doris, we spoke to some people in Waukesha who were from Venezuela. And he was telling us that many people from his family who didn't speak English emigrated to Spain because the language,
Yeah,
because there was
because
no
the language,
language barrier for them.
Yeah,
So maybe a lot of people from Colombia, because they didn't speak any English,
yeah.
emigrated to Spain.
But, you know, we sort of just go. We don't get really involved with the politics of it or in the, you know, what's happening outside that hospital. It's pretty much intense.
Were you there the first year, Luther? 18 years ago? Did that when it started?
No,
30
30 years ago.
30
30
years.
plus years.
30
It
years
took
ago.
Sonia a long time to get him to go. She was on him for a long time with this wound healing.
Okay.
Because Sonia does wound healing with Luther here over at the VA
Yeah.
hospital. And finally, he came home to me and said, well, you know, I think I better go over there to Colombia, because I can't keep saying no to Sonia all the time.
You're hooked, buddy.
And then he got hooked, and
Yeah.
then, well, he hooked me. I really couldn't go until after Eric died, and once Eric passed away, then
Yeah.
I didn't, because the two of us couldn't be out of the country
Yeah.
that long of a time. So then, after the year after that, because they were after me to come for it.
Yeah.
Because they do need volunteers, like people that don't know anything about medicine. They
Right.
have runners, kids that are getting supplies, doing this. There's just interpreters. There's a lot of people there that are just support system. The computers, do you know anything about computers? They got computer port. Okay, you're on. We'll sign up. So they've got different kinds of jobs to do other than the actual medical kind. And sometimes the kids go right into the operating rooms and help the nurses that are doing the different jobs and things. It's really good to see young kids. High school kids will come. And,
One of the things I think that has really helped the country, Colombia, is I think maybe as much as 10 years ago, the United States sent military to go into the jungles
Right.
with the Colombian military. And, you know, for 40 years, the guerrilla, the bad guys living in the jungle used to do all kinds of bombings and, you know, fires and killing people and actually kidnapping them, you know, for ransom, that kind of thing. Well,
They used to-
that's way down. That is way down now. Because actually the guerrilla, he still exists, I think, but in much smaller.
when Luther first went there in 18 years ago, he had a bodyguard with an Uzi. But there was a little bit comical about it, but he didn't let him out of his sight, the guy. But he had his Uzi all wrapped up in this little box. So if the guy jumps out and say, I'm gonna grab Luther because he looks like a good American and has lots of money, this guy would have to say, wait a minute, I have to open the box, put the Uzi together, and then don't you take him. So I don't know, maybe it was just the idea he had the box there that helped. But there were, on every corner, there were policemen, on every corner in town, trying to keep the,
Well, no, I mean, it was more than policemen. They had their
Oh,
military.
the CIA, the military, the FBI.
Yeah, everybody was out there with like some kind of a weapon. I mean,
so another.
think about, you talk about guns in America.
Yeah.
I mean, it was-
And now nobody
now
has
that's-
guns there.
That's gone, you don't see
There's no
that.
guns there, and they don't have any
Yeah.
gun violence at all in Colombia, that they, to speak of. But another thing we have to say, that by 5 years before I started going, I think it was, they flew home from Bucaramanga to Bogota and to the United States on a Sunday morning at 6:30 in the morning. And we got home and we opened the paper that next week, and there's a little tiny blurb in the paper that says airplane hijacked from Bucaramanga to Bogota, the 6:30 flight. The Sunday morning 6:30 flight was hijacked by the cartels, and nobody knew where everybody was.
Wow.
So that was a week later. About that time, I was about ready to say, I don't think so. You're not going. You're not going again.
Yeah, that was over 10 years ago.
Yeah, that was when it was still, you had to watch out for kidnappings and things like that. But the security now is pretty good. They just won't let you go anywhere. They don't want it to damage the mission, probably. If somebody got hurt, they would.
Other questions?
Is that it? Well, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for coming and for being here. forget, you can have an ant on your way out. I won't do those. You would